back in the time of Abraham, so we're talking 2,000 years before Zechariah and Elizabeth lived, so 4,000 plus years for us. But back in 2,000 years beforehand, God had come to a guy named Abraham and made him a promise. And God had said, Abraham, I'm going to make you a great nation. Now that actually did happen, right? Because what happened is Abraham gave birth and his wife Sarah to Isaac, then Jacob, and then Jacob's sons moved to Egypt and became a huge, great nation. He says, Abraham, I'm gonna bless you and make your name great. Well, in fact, most of you, if not all of you, have heard of Abraham when you walked in here today, right? So that's true. Abraham's name did become great. But then he says, I will bless you, and I will bless those who you bless, and I will curse those who you curse. Now, we're just not sure about that. We're still working that out, that part. But the fact is that whole promise given to Abraham is the key root by which all of the Jews in the Old Testament looked back to the time of Abraham and says, God's going to do something. God's going to bless the whole earth through us. And then as you recall, once that nation became great in Egypt, they went into their promised land, and then they eventually set up a kingdom, and things were going great under like David and Solomon. And David and Solomon, those were the golden years of Israel. I mean, it couldn't get any better than this now, could it? And then boom, from that time until the time when you meet Zechariah and Elizabeth, do you know for 700 years, it just didn't seem like God did much for Israel. I mean, do you know in those 700 years that Israel and the who was over Israel, it changed hands 25 times. The Babylonians were over Israel. The Assyrians were over Israel. The Greeks and the Romans, and 25 different times it changed hands during that 700 years. And do you know that in that time, about half the time they had just a small army? And so their international influence was becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and their leverage and their wealth and their armies and all of the strength of Israel was just getting less and less over that time. And so surely God is not going to do anything like he said to Abraham, that he'll bless the whole world through Israel. Surely it's impossible. Surely not only wouldn't it happen, it just couldn't happen. And so in that time, to add insult to injury, in 65 BC, track with me here, there's a guy named Pompey the Great, a great Roman emperor, who rides into the city of Jerusalem, who conquers the city, moves right past the temple guard into the Holy of Holies of the temple, goes into the temple, into the Holy of Holies, where God is supposed to be, where you would be struck dead, the Jews believed, if you went into that place. He went into that place, he stood, he looked around, he walked out, and then the rumors began to spread in Jerusalem. And the rumors said this, hey, I guess Jupiter, the god of the Romans, is stronger than your God, Yahweh. And so you had an even more mass exodus of Jews that just didn't believe, that just abandoned their faith, that just said, I'm done, I'm throwing in the towel.